So what's happened now, it seems to me, with these prop bets, Lubie, is that it's kind of like fantasy football has just turned into total degeneracy football. And, they're asking you, I mean, think about this. Why would I be aware that there was a proposition bet out there, the over-under number of touchdown passes from Mac fucking Jones? Who cares how many touchdown passes he throws? He's going to play for the Patriots this year. You're thinking the Patriots are burial city. Are they not? Maybe Belichick finally calls it quits. He snaps during the course of the season. He realizes, what am I doing? I got Matt Patricia calling plays? Hey, Matt, throw the ball. Exactly. Logic, I mean, has no business in sport. That's why these businessmen all fail. We would be successful as sports team owners, but we don't have the money to own a team. Almost every fan could fall into the same category.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
Good morning, world. Welcome, one and all. Another edition of the Defo Show without Defo, with Lubie here on South Florida Live. We do this each and every day. Notice that things are falling apart in my background. That's always fun. Hopefully everyone had a good weekend. It was a family-filled weekend for me. Took my wife and I went out to Orlando, Defo's favorite place. No, we didn't go to Disney, so it was a win. To go to Orlando and not go to Disney, most of you would say, then why'd you go to Orlando? Well, that's a whole nother reason, but at least we didn't go to Disney. So that was a win. Visited my sister-in-law. It was her birthday a week or so ago. Her and our brother-in-law just moved out to Orlando. Yes, you're like, so visiting Orlando is bad. What is living in Orlando? Worse. But they did live in Fort Myers before. So it's funny. It's rare, but moving to Orlando was a step up. I mean, Fort Myers. Like, really? Going to Florida Gulf Coast after, Slam Dunk You or whatever that run they made was one thing. She stayed there for a couple of years, but they then did pick up and move to, I guess, somewhat of a city. I guess Orlando, compared to Fort Myers, is a city. Again, don't ask me. I'm not living in Orlando. I wouldn't live in Orlando. Shirley and I talked about places to live, and it's big cities. That's what I'm doing. I could see visit. We've been to Helen, Georgia, beautiful. Been to Asheville, North Carolina, beautiful. Been to different places in the West Coast that were smaller, beautiful, and then we live here because that's me. That's what I want. We don't go party a lot, or we don't even go to the beach a lot, but I like knowing the beach is there, and I like knowing within a half an hour I'm in a city. That's what I like. And yes, I get it. You can live outside of Atlanta in Georgia, and within half an hour you can be in Atlanta, but then you're wherever the fuck you are. Like, we're here. I'm not hating on small towns. Those of you that follow us and are in a smaller area, good for you. I've enjoyed my time there. I went to FSU. I was there 5 years. Tallahassee is definitively a small town. I really enjoyed it. The people were great. And after a year, I'm like, drive, goddammit. Like, eventually, I want to be here with other lunatics like myself. So we did and enjoyed Orlando. It's nice. They have a nice apartment. The cost of living is less. They're telling us their apartment prices, and they're like, oh, my God, it's crazy. We're like, yeah, that's nuts. Yes, it's cheaper. There's a reason. It's Orlando. So hopefully you all had a great weekend. I had a good weekend. As you can see, I'm still, the remnants are here, but I'm not blowing my nose. I shouldn't have to blow my nose on air today. So that's a win. So we're improving. We looked at more homes, so the home search is going. So that's so fun. I'm also a realtor on the side. So doing this, and then whenever we do find a home we like, I will be the one to help sell our home and help buy a home and do this. So it's so fun. It's so much fun. It's so much going on right now. But hopefully you all are doing well. We're rolling along. Defo, as you can tell, is not here. I presumed from the beginning this is the day he would miss. So of course he missed both days. But he will be back tomorrow. He's doing well. He, I think, did fine in New Orleans. I didn't get any lose my number texts. So I'm thinking he didn't like go broke in New Orleans. So that's a win. That's good. And we start once again, as you can see, with a Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill Dateline Dolphins coming up at 8 o'clock. John Congemi will join me, and we will overanalyze the Miami Dolphins' second preseason game. It is interesting. Like, all I do is talk about how the preseason is a tease. We get excited for the preseason. It comes, and then we're like, it's the preseason. That's not what people are doing. I guess, one, the Dolphins, there are some expectations this year. Like, you went and signed guys. You went and went 10 and 9 games back-to-back seasons. You have a defense that was highly rated. You have a quarterback that was highly drafted, and the other 2 quarterbacks drafted around him have had Herbert hasn't actually had any success. Tua's had as good or a better record, but Herbert has become a top 5 quarterback. Joe Burrow has become a top 5 quarterback and was in the Super Bowl. So expectations for him are high, whether it's rational or not. You went and got not only players, you went and got one of the most electric players in the game ever in Tyreek Hill. You brought in a young coach that just seems different and new and fun and has had success. Literally went to a Super Bowl as a running game coordinator and was an NFC Championship last year as an offensive coordinator for the Niners. So there's a lot of glitz and glamour. You've had some issues off the field literally every time involving your owner because he can't get out of the goddamn way. But when it comes to the team, you've had some successes, and there's finally expectations for the first time. Not in 20 years. We've had expectations, but it feels like it's going to be fun for the first time since Dan Marino put on that number 13. Okay, so that has made this preseason really weird. That's number 1. 2, I also think the Dolphins have had close games. The Dolphins have been in both games. The first game, it was close, and then they won at the end. The second game versus the Raiders was close, and they almost won in the end and took a lead late and then gave up the lead late. So people are overanalyzing everything. My favorite thing about the Dolphins overanalyzation preseason is it's only negative. Like, if things go well, Skylar Thompson's the only thing. For some reason, Skylar Thompson can do anything, and he's great, which he's not. He's not great. There's a reason he was drafted in the 7th round. There's a reason he's excelling versus the third stringers. Not even second. Like, it's third stringers he's excelling. And he'll have some starters with him. Like, Mike Gesicki played into, like, the second half. So there's talent around Skylar Thompson. He's playing against ass. So I think he's looked fun. And as a 7th round pick, he's looked like a guy that can actually be a quarterback in the league in some form. But like, he's getting this really broad brush of respect. And then everything is we overanalyze the negative and ignore the positive. So I just don't overanalyze any of it. It's preseason. Like, people are complaining about the offensive line. Armstead hasn't played a minute. Well, they had the 4, but who gives a shit? Like, he is considered a top 5 offensive lineman. He's considered a top 3 to 5 left tackle, and he hasn't played a minute. Like, don't you think if a guy who's that good at his job is out there, it'll make everyone else's job easier? If that guy that's that good at his job is out there, it'll allow everyone else to fit in, get in where they fit in, as they say. Like, to me, once you don't have your best offensive tackle out there, and it's not because of injuries, he's fine, you're just not playing him, that tells you what this is. When you don't have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, neither has played a minute. Neither. Okay, Cedric Wilson played the first game. I don't know how much he played the second game. Okay. Like, you haven't played Mostert, who's the fastest guy in the NFL, and between Edmonds, maybe the starter at running back, and Edmonds got out there, but he had 3 carries, and Michelle was out there, but I don't think he got used. Like, Tua did 2 drives, was 6 of 8. Tua did 2 drives, 6 of 8 for 58 yards, which is good. Like, what else would you want him to do? And I actually saw someone say he played like he sucked. I'm like, I don't even think he could have sucked. Like, you literally just want this to matter so bad that, and you're so used to the Dolphins letting you down that you're overanalyzing the wrong way. Like, if you're going to overanalyze it, then you got to do both sides. You got to look at, oh, shit. You know what? Edmonds actually made a nice play. Cool. You know, Mackenzie Alexander, who is coming in for Troy Williams, look good. You know? And you haven't had Xavier Howard. You haven't had Byron Jones. You haven't had Holland. You haven't played. Ogba was out there, but I don't think he played much. Phillips was out there, but he didn't play much. And on offense, again, you haven't played all of your the guys you spent money on or are Pro Bowl caliber players. All of them. None of them played. Williams played the offensive lineman, but again, without Armstead. They're supposed to go hand in hand. So to me, I guess I'm being overly sane, which is rare. If you followed us, you've watched us. I'm not sane fan. I am the lunatic that nitpicks everything. But like, it's a new, and you have an offensive minded coach, and all we've heard for years, my entire life, is vanilla, vanilla, vanilla. Coaches don't do anything in the preseason. So are you shocked that they're not running it well? Like, oh, they're running 18 carries for 37 yards, 2 yards per carry. The run game's the same. It is. He hasn't done anything. Have you seen one flea flicker? Have you seen one double reverse? Have you seen one tricky play? Have you seen one? Well, all we've heard is that he's creative. Have you seen anything creative? Like, it's so funny to me, the fan. I don't know. It's not even, I'm sure all fans are doing this. Like, when they see something negative in the preseason, it's real. Anything positive outside of the third string quarterback doesn't matter. And we're just going to feel, It's like, who cares? It's the preseason. Like, this is my problem with the preseason is you see football. You do read some names that you've heard of that you think will get time. So you make it real. It's not real. It's a preseason. And I think what we've seen from the Dolphins is fine. I think what we've seen is we know who won't be on the team. Mike Gesicki is one of the top 10 tight ends in football. Mike Gesicki is a great pass catching tight end. He leans toward being a receiver. It's why he wanted to work on his deal because, again, receivers make a lot more than tight ends. The problem is they don't want him to be a receiver. They have lots of receivers. That's one thing. Kuzma, Ezu Konma. That's the two stories of the preseason to me are Thompson will be a backup in this league, and he may be better than Bridgewater. That's cool. I don't think he's fucking great like every Dolphin fan wants him to be. I think he flings the ball up a lot. It's Fitzpatrick, but young. Like, he flings the ball up. The guy makes the play great. That one catch by Zinkama was not Thompson. That was a horrible throw. The receiver wasn't looking. He was blanketed in coverage, and the quarterback flung it up. Like, in an NFL game with an NFL starting defensive back, that's an interception. But Zinkama made a great play on the ball and made an amazing catch. But that was not a good play by the quarterback. Thompson's fine, and he was 90%. Had over 100 yards and threw for the one touchdown, which, again, wasn't him. He threw to a running back who eluded three defenders and got in the end zone. That wasn't Thompson. So we learned that Thompson doesn't suck, and he's a 7th-round pick on a guy that maybe their backup and maybe someone in the future that you can trade for like a 3rd or 4th-round pick. So that was a positive. And then come on, the receiver is your 4th receiver, and he's really good for preseason. What will he do for starting NFL defensive backs? No freaking clue. Like, no idea. But he's interesting. He's what you thought Preston Williams would be. He's a guy that when the ball's near him, he catches it, which Williams doesn't do. He drops the hell a lot. He's out there, which Williams is always hurt. So feels like after Cedric Wilson Jr. Izunkuma was a positive. Wonderful. And Noah Igbinoghene sucks. We knew that. It's a 1st-round pick that literally at the time, I had never heard of his name. Going into the draft, he wasn't even in the top 6 corners. I think he was slated for 2nd, 3rd round, maybe. And he was overdrafted by Greer, who did that a lot for a lot of players that have shown themselves to suck. And you had Trill Williams get hurt, who looked like he was going to be your 3rd corner. And instead of bumping up Noah, you went inside Mackenzie Alexander, who looked really good. So you're admitting that Igbinoghene is like your 6th cornerback, and they torched the living shit out of him in that game, like Saturday. They went right at him, right down the field for easy score after easy score. So the dude not only won't be in your top 3 or 4, he's not making the roster. Like, you'll probably keep Thompson over him. So that's what I've learned from preseason is the Eric Nzenkama receiver, legit. Thompson, better than a 7th-round pick. Will be probably kept as the 3rd quarterback because you did pay Bridgewater, but Bridgewater was not good. Like, literally took he took a safety when he didn't have to. Like, he rolled out, had all day to throw it away, had guys where he could throw it away too. He was out of the pocket so he could have thrown it away, and then tried to juke a dude and as he was going to the ground, threw it to nobody. So either he was down, so that's a safety, or he did threw it to nowhere, safety. And then after that, he was 5 of 10 or 10 of 20. I'm sorry, he was 10 of 20, like 100 yards, no touchdowns, a sack. He just wasn't good. And Thompson has looked good. So maybe Thompson's your backup. Maybe that's what you can see you got out of preseason. It's just funny because like we're so used to being pissed and frustrated and bitching that there's what do you want to say? Talk. Oh, you're joking, Andy. Okay, I was about to say like Andy's like enough of that Dolphins. Let's talk Marlins. Do you know that the Marlins are playing still? Are the Marlins still playing? I'm like I couldn't even tell you. All I saw of them all the weekend was it looked like they were. It would look like a football score. Like I know they lost. What was it? Saturday, 7-0. They lost a close one Friday. Sorry, Saturday 7-0, and yesterday they lost 10-3. Like the Marlins are one of the dumbest and stupid most useless franchises in sports. I mean, they're doing a sell off from being bad. Like at least if you're doing a sell off, have talent. How do you do a sell off from bad? Like that's just weird. But anyways, so the Dolphins are the focus, and we will have John Congemi. We'll bring him back. Dateline Dolphins every Monday. So we'll have John Congemi at about 8 o'clock. I think we're gonna have Brett Tessler this morning, actually, at 7:30 something. So we'll have him come on. It's just funny because all we talk about is what's good about the preseason, what's important about the preseason, why does the preseason matter? What's been cool about having Tessler on? He represents a lot of guys that are undrafted or drafted later, so they're not automatically assumed to have spots. So the preseason does matter to them. So he talks about the value of the preseason from that perspective. But it never seems like it should matter to the fan. Like my whole life we talked about what is the point of this? Now there's one less game, so now they really don't even put starters in. Okay. But it feels like because Dolphins finally have some expectations, Dolphins fans are so used to being negative. It's like the weirdest combination. It's like, okay, so there's expectations, so we have to care about the preseason. But they obviously are vanilla and not doing anything in the preseason. So they're the same old Dolphins. They suck, and there's bitching and moaning. That's all I've seen is bitching and moaning. And I'm like, this is such a weird place for me to be, but I'm like the Dolphin defender. I'm like the positive fan. I'm like the realist. I'm being the logical one. And all I'm doing is like, what are you talking? I want to block people because they're being so. Tua sucks. Tua's a third string. Tua's a backup. Skylar Thompson. I'm like, what are you watching? Like, you're watching this. Derek Carr didn't even play. Derek Carr didn't step on the field. Like, how can you take it seriously when the Dolphins' best 5 offensive players outside of Tua didn't play at all? Tua only played 2 drives. That's all he played. And he only threw it 8 times. On 2 drives, he threw it 8 times total. And they got a first down. I think they got 2 first downs. So they did have multiple sets of downs and only threw it 8 times. Like, and again, Derek Carr, the starter for the Raiders, never played. Didn't play a down. How the fuck can you take that seriously? How can you analyze that and yell at each other? I don't know. Especially Dolphin fans have gotten to a place of negativity where even when things don't matter and you're allowed to go, who cares? They still bitch and moan and scream. I watch it just to see. Like, I wanted to see how Tua looked. He looked good. He was getting chased around because, again, their offensive line is still not there yet. They don't have all their guys playing, and they're trying to figure shit out. They didn't have their entire running game. Like, even when Edmonds ran, it was the stupidest run plays. Like, they weren't creative at all. The routes are not creative. And you're missing 2 of the top 15 receivers in football. So how good do you think you're going to be? So I wasn't looking to win or any of that crap. I just wanted to see him out there. He made a really nice play, moved up in the pocket, threw a strike. His arm looks good. He's getting rid of the ball. He didn't take sacks. He didn't take hits. Cool. You saw Edmonds make a nice play. You're seeing this other receiver look good. You're realizing Gesicki's not going to make it on this team. Like, the dude was playing into the second half as a Pro Bowl caliber tight end. Like, that doesn't make sense. On that safety, the reason they did it was because they were giving Gesicki a chance to make a block, and then Bridgewater would have a chance to roll out. Gesicki blew the block entirely. Like, he was horrendous, but it's because he's not a blocker. Not only he's bad at blocking, he doesn't even try to block. Like, he doesn't think about blocking. But that's why a lot of people, like the professor talked about this guy's heavy in the run game. You're going to think the tight ends. Look, even Kittle, who's a top 2 or 3 tight end, he's old school. Like, he's great at everything. He's a great blocker. He's great at route running. He's great at helping down the field on the run game. He does everything. Like, that's not Gesicki. The dude's just a pass catcher. That's literally his MO. And that was people's question was, what are they? That's why they didn't give him a deal. If you notice, they tagged him because he had enough value that you weren't going to just let him go. But they didn't give him a deal because they're not sure if he fits in this offense. And I think they've seen in camp and now through preseason, he doesn't. And it sucks because he's actually, for a guy at a second-round pick that people thought may have been a bust, he turned into a legit tight end, but for another offense, for a very, very, very pass-happy offense. And this offense isn't that. Like, this offense is based around the run game. That's why when people see 2 yards per carry, like the second straight game, they're freaking out. but they didn't do anything. Like they didn't. They're supposed to have 3 running backs that are all different. So that, first of all, puts the defense on its heels. Then they're supposed to have their entire offensive line. That they didn't. Then they're supposed to be creative, which obviously that's not going to happen, especially in the run game in the preseason. Like they looked vanilla. They looked That was the goal. So they achieved the goal. This is the Defo Show. No Defo, just Lubie here on South Florida Live. Coming up at 8 o'clock, we will talk with John Congemi. We're going back to old school. No, old school. Old school's on Wednesdays with Tony Segredo. Going back to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill Dateline Dolphin Mondays. So really happy to have that. And in about 10 minutes, we're actually going to talk to Brett Tessler, the NFL agent to the stars. Talk a little bit of NFL preseason from the player point of view, because that's the thing. It does matter there. If you're a 5th rounder, 6th rounder, 7th rounder, if you're an older guy that's trying to hang on, if you're someone who's gotten injured and people have sort of forgotten about you, preseason matters to you. But as a fan, the majority of the players you're going to see and you're expecting to see are not playing. Like, they're not. And if they get in, they play like a series, 2, a quarter. Like, the end of the game that people are watching and like rooting for Skylar Thompson, those people in there don't matter at all. Even Skylar Thompson doesn't matter. Because right now, Ted Bridgewater's taking over $6 million. Like, and Thompson's been good for a 7th-round pick, and Bridgewater was horrible in that game. He still is going to be the backup, at least at this point. Like, going into the season, a guy who started in this league, a guy who's had some success, a guy who's been good at now being the older dude around a young guy, he's going to be the backup going into the season like he is. So, like, whatever Skylar Thompson's done, he's not unseating Bridgewater, and he's not starting. These people that have this, I don't know. It's weird about Tua. Like, for such a mild-mannered dude who's never done anything off the field, who's had a lot of success on the field, who's had a lot of reasons why he wouldn't succeed with the Dolphins, like, every reason under the sun, people want to be mad at him. Like, he might not be the future for the Dolphins. I don't know. But we haven't seen any reason to think he won't. Like, we haven't seen any reason to assume he'll be great. Fine. I'll give you that. Okay. But the dude is accurate as hell. Like, if you give him any time, he completes a pass or he gets rid of the ball. He doesn't take sacks and he doesn't turn it over. Isn't that the most important part of a quarterback? I understand we want guys who make plays. Believe me, I hated Tannehill. But Tannehill also took sacks and turned it over. Like, and he didn't make plays. That was my problem with Tannehill, is he didn't make plays, he turned it over, and he took sacks. Tua doesn't do any of those things, and he does make plays. If you give him a chance, he makes plays. And now he'll have talent. And now he'll have a fun young coach that's behind him with an actual run game, hopefully. We haven't seen it yet. I get it. Look, it sucks that we're not going to have seen any semblances of what the season will be. But that's the point of preseason now. It's to get young guys in, see if they're good enough to play in the NFL, and don't show anything else. And don't get anyone hurt. That's the point of it. Literally, don't get hurt. Don't show anything. And if you have see if you have young guys that can be like 3rd string. And maybe backup. Maybe. That's literally the point of the preseason. So, like, go on Twitter and read the psychotic over-analysis and try to marry them. The over-analysis with the thing I just said. They don't make any sense. What doesn't make sense is Brett Tessler, Agent of the Stars, been with us pretty much since the beginning. We'll talk with him about 5-10 minutes about preseason overall. We'll get into the Dolphins. I'm sure he'll be tough on the Dolphins and tough on Tua because everyone is. But my interest with him is the last 2 weeks we've talked about what is the real value of the preseason. His guys. His guys are the ones that are most affected by the preseason. Not the people you're stressing about or worrying about. Those people already have their jobs. It's the 5th, 6th round pick. Izukuma. I'm probably saying it very wrong. Izukuma is how it's spelled. I don't know. I'm sure soon enough, just like Tua, we'll know how to say his name because the dude's he's been that star of the preseason. He had over 100 yards receiving. He's catching anything near him. Thompson, he made time. The reason Thompson looks really good is because of him. In both games, he's been like his number one, and the dude makes plays. We'll see if it transitions into the regular season. Again, this is Defo Show, no Defo. Defo will be back tomorrow. I have spoken to him. He is well alive. From what I know, he did fine. I don't know. I don't think he hit it big because I would have gotten that. I'll get text either if he hits it big or if he's down. If he's doing okay, I don't hear from him. I didn't hear from him. So I presume he's doing okay. And at 8 o'clock again, we bring back our Dateline Dolphins hours each and every Monday with one and only John Congemi. Thank you to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Key Largo. And at 12 o'clock, we will have another edition of Sandwich Fest. We have, I guess, one more week. I guess this is the last week of Sandwich Fest. No, I guess we're going to the 31st, right? So I think 31st is Wednesday of next week. So we finish up our last week plus. Mike Mayo eats a sandwich a day to add the carbs and bring the doctors to stay. It's been interesting. I can't lie. Like I've been with Defo a long time, and he's not a fan of eating on air. And Mayo now eats on air every day. He eats in the most grotesque, graphic fashions a person can eat, and do that on air. So that can become entertaining. Or even Defo and I are like, good for him. So at 12 o'clock, we'll have another Mike Mayo's Lunchbox, brought to you by a bevy of tremendous sponsors. Headline by Visit Lauderdale. Every dish under the sun Thursdays with Nikki Mohan. We've been having a really good time with her and can't wait for our location this week. So check that out right here at 12 o'clock. And coming up next, the one and only Brett Tessler, the Agent of the Stars, as we have so dubbed him for years. We'll talk Dolphins. But to me, what I like having Tessler on is we'll talk about the NFL at large and just the value of the preseason. Everyone's breaking it down. Everyone's overanalyzing. Everyone's freaking out. Should they be? Coming up next, right here on the show. No Defo. He'll be back tomorrow. Just Lubie on South Florida Live.
Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. You know, since day one, Catholic Health Services has been part of Old School. And since we've started letting people know about them, it's changed their lives. You see, Catholic Health Services, while being recognized as one of the top places for stroke rehab in the country, it's also about a group of people who not just excel in what they do, from the doctors to the nurses to the therapist, on and on and on. It's how they do what they do every single day that separates them from the pack. They do it with a passion, unmatched, and the inclusion of family in every step of the process. Trust me when I tell you this. If you want the best, unmatched rehab with a special group of skilled, caring people, there is truly only one place, and that one place is Catholic Health Services.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
The simple pleasures of this job, the way a stadium sounds when one of my players performs well on the field, the way we are meant to protect them in health and in injury. Less work, more attention, caring for them, caring for ourselves in the games too.
The Agent to the Stars, the one and only Brett Tessler.
All righty, we do this each and every week for years on Tuesdays at 8:30. Now is brand new time. Every Monday you'll hear the NFL and more. One and only Brett Tessler, as Defo's dubbed him, the Agent to the Star, joins us this Monday at 7:30. Good morning, Brett. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, Luke. Good morning. Great to be with you.
All righty. So what's interesting of the last 2 weeks, the only conversations I valued about preseason have been the ones with you, because it feels like everyone's taking this preseason weirdly too seriously. And for your clients, a lot of the case, the preseason is serious. So it's made sense for you to bring your analysis, which has been strong, about the preseason. I was out of town this weekend, but of course I was on Twitter, and it's been very interesting to see how fans are diagnosing this preseason, because you're seeing some guys play well, but a lot of those guys probably won't get minutes in the regular season. For you, we've talked about it when it comes to your guys. So far through 2 games, how has the preseason fared for them? What has been their reaction when it comes to the preseason?
Everything's going well. Everyone's doing well. In the case of your veterans, you just want everyone to stay healthy. And in the case of your young guys, you just want everyone to show development and progression from week to week. There's no better example probably around the entire NFL this year of why the preseason is more important than Skylar Thompson. And so I've always been a believer that 4 preseason games are necessary to really give you all the necessary time to evaluate the young guys. I know the fans don't care about it. I don't expect them to. I'm sure season ticket holders aren't happy about having to buy those tickets. But the bottom line is, in the case of a Skylar Thompson, if you're thinking about using one of 53 roster spots on this guy, you're obviously going to have to be taking away from another position. That could be a very talented young receiver. That could be a very talented young defensive back, offensive lineman in many cases. And so with Skylar Thompson, obviously, if this guy looks like he has the goods, like this guy's either A, going to have potential to be an incredibly valuable backup, or who knows, maybe even a starter, depending on what happens over the next year. If nothing else, the longer he's able to prove it throughout successful preseasons and regular season duty if put into it, the greater his trade value would be for the Dolphins. So that's not a guy you can afford to waive to try to put on a practice squad, because a lot of people think you could just put a guy directly on a practice squad. You can't. You have to waive him first. He goes through waivers. And if another team claims him, like the Eagles did with one of the other Dolphins young quarterbacks the other year, he's gone. And so, with a young quarterback, that's a position where you certainly will be able to find some spot to keep him if you think he's legit. The only thing is, he's 2 for 2 now. Has it been luck? Has it just been, going against bad competition? This is why you'd like to see it if you were the Dolphins at least a couple more times. But if I were them in this next game, I would play that guy the entire game. Just let's see what he can do, because that's really going to be your last chance before making that decision. And these roster spots are all very, very valuable.
Well, and you said what I wanted to ask you next is, if you were his agent, you said it last week, you sort of laughed. Look, I don't know what his trade value is yet. Let's calm down there. But you said that teams will keep 3 quarterbacks if they have a young prospect that overwhelms. So you were sort of in the middle on that. As his agent, I get it, you're not lobbying for playing time. We know Tua is a starter, and this is where the question comes to me, because I don't know if he's been as great as Dolphins fans. They want to proclaim him immoral. The backup that could be a starter. But he's been better than a 7th-round pick. And right now, they both played a lot of time in the second game. And Bridgewater didn't look good, and Thompson did. So the second quarterback spot could be up for him. As his agent, what are you doing to try and make sure he has a spot? Because I get it. Yeah, his trade value might not be up yet, and he may not be the backup yet. But he's shown a lot, and he's shown a lot more than a lot of people thought he would as a 7th-round pick.
Yeah, I mean, as his agent, you just continue to support him and, help keep his confidence high. And as far as ultimately what's going to happen, that'll be up to the team. Agents don't get involved in those conversations. Okay. That's a conversation that's going to be had between the front office and the coaching staff. And, in some cases, an owner could potentially get involved in it. But, as it relates to this, there's no question that at this point, with the scarcity and shortage of talented quarterbacks around the league, I mean, this guy's gotten everybody's attention because his numbers in these first 2 games haven't been good. They've almost been perfect.
Yeah.
And so with that, he will end up somewhere. If the Dolphins did decide they just don't have a spot for him, they're very likely saying goodbye to him, because the chances of this guy clearing waivers and being available to sign to your practice squad are going to be very, very thin. Some cruddy team out there that has nothing to lose will and should take a shot at a guy like this. So it's just one of those deals where now the Dolphins are looking at it like, well, what do we do? Because you've already played him this much.
Yeah.
So if they could go back in time, if they knew they didn't have a roster spot for this guy, if they were to go back, they probably shouldn't play him at all this preseason, just because if you knew the guy was looking good in camp and you knew that he was good enough to at least keep on a practice squad, the more film you put together for the rest of the league, the greater the chance that you're kissing the guy goodbye. So either not play a guy like that much and try to hide him like a lot of teams will do, or at this point, it's too late to hide him. In this next game, I literally play him the entire game, and that'll go a long way to making my decision if I'm the Dolphins as to whether you keep him on the roster or, again, likely end up saying goodbye to him.
So that's interesting, because we always hear about the meddling agents. Whenever we hear of someone wanting out, it's not the player, it's not the team, it's the agent. Whenever we hear of, you'll hear teams are giving the player / the agent permission to seek a trade. It's interesting. You said you'll sort of stay out of what the team's doing. So I find that curious. That is like, you don't want to bring more attention to it, or like you will just not even be involved. You won't even be like, hey guys, look, like, is it that whatever you're seeing, of course they can see, like there's no need to talk to the team about Skylar Thompson at this point, because whatever his value is, they can see it.
Right. Yeah. Basically, when you hear about meddling agents, that's usually mostly in a sport like baseball, where, now you've got agents dictating to teams how many pitches a guy's going to throw and things like that. Because those are sports where players have the ultimate power, huge long-term, fully guaranteed contract. That's where, you'll start to see that stuff a little bit more. In the NFL, it's always been a little bit different. Sure, an agent will come into the public view when there's a contract problem with one of their guys. If a guy's underpaid, if a team's not doing the right thing, I've been involved in those situations. Unfortunately, it's just kind of the way the business goes from time to time. But it's not like in other sports where agents are really actively telling teams, here's what's going to be, here's what you're going to do. An agent will be involved from the standpoint that certainly I want to know what's going on. I'll be talking to the team and I'll be figuring out, hey, so what do you guys think? What are your plans? And if they tell you that, hey, he's probably not going to be able to make it, or we'd like to, still be able to have him on the practice squad, these are things that you can then tell your client, as they certainly want to know what's going on. But as far as ultimately that decision that's made, whether you keep a guy, cut a guy, trade a guy, whether a guy gets claimed elsewhere, those are things that are just going to happen the way they do, and the agent's going to have nothing to do with it.
Brett Tessler, each and every week, is always brought to us by Will and Trust attorney Michael D. Wild. We'll definitely talk a lot more about him, talking about feeling safe. He definitely will allow you to feel safe about your present and your future plans, especially financially. Brett, so that's the thing is, you've been doing, I guess you've done this a long time with us, because you're setting up my transitions perfectly for me. That was the next thing I was going to talk about. Was we're getting to that point with first cuts, and then next week we'll get to second and final cuts. And I know you'll do represent some guys that are trying to get in there or trying to hold on to positions. And you talked about last week where you'll not only watch tape, you'll watch each play like 10 times to try and give tips, try and understand for yourself, for your players, try and help them out, and also understand for what their future is. Is this where are you at a point where you start to analyze if guys are going to make it, not make it, and figure out what the next step is for them at this point in preseason?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the reason why I'm watching all this film. Obviously, I'll give them my opinion on what I see, but it's not like I see anything they don't see themselves, or that their coaches who watch the film with them haven't seen. It's more to really have a heads up in terms of what to expect as far as who I think is going to make it, who I feel like is at least, has a future in the league, if not with his present team, with somebody else. And again, in many cases, that's offensive lineman, because that's a position where it can take some of these young guys a year or two to really develop. So, with those guys, it's a process. You have to be patient. But yeah, I am always very honest with my guys in terms of letting them know what I think their chances are going to be. I had a young lineman that unfortunately got let go by the Packers yesterday.
Oh, wow.
And we talked the day before. Yeah, we talked the day before. And I said to him, listen, it's not a matter of if we're going to get let go. The question is it going to be this week or will we get one more game
wow.
and have a chance to do it next week? But I told the guy, either way, I think you've shown enough things here where I believe you can play in this league. And, I've been through this a million times before with guys similar to you. So whatever happens, we're not going to be surprised. We're not going to be devastated. We're just going to be ready for anything. And so when the call came, this guy didn't go try to look for the highest building to jump off. And so, it's just, this is what I hope a good agent does. And it's certainly what I try to do for my guy.
Well, and that's the two parts of that to me are one, I would like, so if you already in that place where you've sort of accepted, not that it won't work out, it just won't work out here. Will you already, are you allowed to reach out to other teams? Because he's sort of not under a contract, right? Like, are you allowed to then reach out to other teams? Are you already setting up the next location? Or is that bad luck? Like, how does that work? Because this is his and your livelihood here. So are you having backup plans or do you just play it by ear? Okay, he is officially cut. He is officially gone. Now we'll look for the next team.
So the difficult thing when he and everybody else who gets let go yesterday or today or tomorrow's actually the deadline to get down to the next cut, it's not a good time to be out there just because every team is in the same predicament of having to get rid of maybe some of their own guys that they like. So everybody's sort of in subtraction, not addition mode right now. So, it's just one of those things where, again, you explain that to the player, you let him know that if nobody claims you on waivers here, it's, again, not a reflection that nobody likes you or that you don't still have a future. It's just, right now, you're going to be out there in a flooded market because next week the final cut comes, and that's, the one where you're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of players out there on the market. It just gets difficult, and this is where, again, as a young player who's out there, you need to expect that it's likely that nothing's going to happen in the short term, and you just have to keep yourself ready, be patient, let the dust settle, and then as the season goes on and teams have an opportunity to evaluate some of the players who are out there, or they start having injuries at certain positions and need to look at positions, that's when the opportunities start to come. So, and these are the things that a good experienced agent explains to their clients and has them prepared for.
Let's go with things here with Brett Tessler, the NFL agent to the stars. Alrighty, so when it comes into this last game, and then we'll wrap up here because I know it's a busy Monday for you. What are the things you look for and your clients look for? Like, if let's say you're on the fence still, are you able to still earn a job this week? Like, are things still up in the air? Because I understand that they say last cut, but I always felt like teams sort of knew by now who they were or weren't keeping. It always felt like that last game, you saw guys giving their all, and you'd watch the Hard Knocks, and they would set you up to think he's going to make it, and then he's the one that missed it, and he really never had a shot ever. So, like, how imperative is this last game? Like, do guys still who are on the fence still have a chance of earning a spot in this last game?
Well, you are very correct that teams are certainly formulating their idea on how the final cut or, this week's cut or whatever the case may be is going to shake out. I think teams don't necessarily know exactly who the last 5 or 10 cuts are going to be at this moment. But the majority of the guys that are going to let go, yes, I think the teams have a pretty clear idea at this point. But, this is, again, the difference between 3 preseason games like we have now, as opposed to the 4 preseason games that we had always had before. This third game probably takes on a little bit more meaning than it used to in the past. So in the old days, the third game was sort of the dress rehearsal, if you will. That was the game where you might see starting quarterback play a half or at least a quarter. Now, 1 week, before the, or, a couple weeks before the first regular season game, And there's been a lot of injuries, unfortunately, as there always seems to be this time of the year around the league. I think you're going to see some teams being a little more scared to, play their starters very much, if at all, because, you take a team like Tampa in this last game, they just lost another one of their starting linemen.
Oh, geez.
And so, yeah.
That's two.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So exactly. And so, this is a very legitimate concern that every team has. And it's just kind of that fine balance that everyone has to make between trying to get prepared, but trying to stay healthy too. And, again, that's sort of a dynamic in our sport that doesn't really exist in, like, say, a basketball or baseball or some of the other sports out there. So, it's still kind of newer, and I think different teams will have different philosophies. I think you'll see some teams. Pat Mahomes played a bunch the other day.
Yeah.
Yet Tua has just played very little. So it'll just be up to different coaches and different philosophies as to how they want to manage their roster in the preseason. Unlike years past where it was a little more clear, okay, this game you'll see the starters this much, this game you won't see any starter for one snap. It's just a newer time now with the 3 preseason games. So I think every team is still kind of trying to figure out what they want to do individually.
You said a key word there, prepared. NFL teams are trying to prepare for the regular season. You should be prepared for your life, and a long life, and then the afterlife. And I'm not talking about any places in the sky. I'm talking about your family, your friends, those that love you, that will be here supporting you, through all. Michael D. Wild, to this day, Defo lost his mother a couple years ago, and stuff still pops up, and he still helps Defo regularly. Defo and his family handling things. He's a man that not only helps you during the process, but whenever you need help. Michael D. Wild, when it comes to Will and Trust, is really the place to go if you have help, have already had help and it failed, or you're looking to get help.
You hit the nail on the head, Lubie. I'm very happy I was able to recommend Defo to him. And it's one of those things where I'm happy that people recommended him to me. And it's, when it comes to estate planning and taking care of wills and trusts and things like that, I don't think it's anything anybody's really looking forward to dealing with. But on the other hand, as you have a family and as you accumulate any amount of wealth, no matter how little or how much, it's just important to make sure that everything is properly taken care of and in place. That's why you reach out to Michael Wild, SouthFloridaWills.com. Best estate planning attorney in South Florida. And once you do, you'll realize how quick, painless, easy, affordable the process is. Reach out to Michael Wild, SouthFloridaWills.com.
Brett, thank you so much. Good luck to you and all your players this week. And can't wait to talk to you next week as we head into the regular season. Appreciate it, Brett. Have a good one, okay?
Awesome, Lubie. Take care, bud.
Thanks, man. One and only Brett Tessler, as he's been so dubbed, the agent to the stars, here joins us each and every Monday now. For years it was on Tuesdays. It's a busy man. We've had to move things around. So we'll just go hardcore, like old school sports talk radio, Football Monday. So we'll have Brett Tessler. It's already Football Monday anyway, so might as well. Tessler, Monday, 7:30 to 7:35. And John Congemi, Dateline Dolphins, they're back. Well, they never left. We've been supporting them this whole time, but he's back. The busy man took the offseason off, full force, with his duties with CBS4, with his duties with the Dolphins, and his duties each and every Monday with us from 8 to 9. Dateline Dolphins with John Congemi, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Key Largo. Can't wait to get back there. Defo talks so much about it. You'll see in this next commercial break are the images. It's funny. They're beautiful. Roy did a tremendous job encapsulating and captivating what we and you will see down at the Big Chill. And even then, there's nothing like the Big Chill. When it gets down to the Keys, it is a long drive, even for us down here who aren't far from the Keys. But it won't be if you stop at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Key Largo. It breaks up the trip well. First of all, just head down there and make that the trip. But if you're going all the way down to the Big Key, down to Key West, well, stop on the way down, stop on the way back. Great food, great drink, great fun. Perfect place. They have their sports bar is amazing. We were there last year, and we are planning on getting back there to talk to the man himself, Mr. Swagger, as in November, Jimmy Johnson will have his book co-written by or written. I don't know how it wasn't ghostwritten. I mean, it's well known that Dave Hyde is the writer, but Dave Hyde and Jimmy Johnson wrote the book together. Swagger. It's out in November. We will have Jimmy with us and hopefully maybe Dave Hyde. That'd be really cool. Talk about the book, talk about the man, talk about the place itself. Big show. We love it. You'll love it. Head down to Key Largo. Check out Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. And coming up in about 10 minutes, we will have Mr. John Congemi, his brother Dom, and his sister-in-law run Jimmy Johnson's Big Show. So we'll talk a little bit of chill, and we'll talk a lot of football. Miami Dolphins now 1-1 on the preseason, lost 15-12 to the Raiders. Another highly contested game. Another game where Skylar Thompson looked really good. Another game where the running game faltered. The offensive line wasn't great. The second and third team defense was But the Dolphins were in it until the end. They had a chance to win it at the end. And they still haven't played most of their starters. So, again, like I talked about in the first segment, you can only take so much out of the game. But I did enjoy talking to Brett. And we've talked to him for years. But that's, to me, he knows the game. And he's fun to talk about. Who's going to win and lose, whatever. But we do enough handicapping. He's a guy that literally represents players that are trying to make the NFL dream come true. And he's a big part of trying to make the dream come true. So it's interesting to me. You always hear about agents getting in the middle and getting involved. And when you hear rumors, it's the agent that leaked it, the agent that said it. Tessler point blank said, yeah, I don't get involved in that. Like, I talk to my players. I talk to the organizations. I am the medium between the players and the organizations. But when it comes to going to the organization to say, well, I'm going to look at my guy, he assumes if I see it, they see it. Now he's there to defend his players. He's there to make sure they don't get a raw deal when the contract's up or they're in contract negotiations. He fights tooth and nail to get his player every dollar they've earned and they deserve. But right now, a guy like Skylar Thompson, no one knows what he is. He's looked good. He's looked like he definitely is worth a seventh-round pick. He's looked like a guy that probably is worth a roster spot. And he definitely outplayed Teddy Bridgewater in that last game like he did. But is he a better overall quarterback than Teddy Bridgewater? In the regular season, if Tua is out for whatever reason, would you rather have Skylar Thompson, not Dolphin fan who's lost her mind, person who knows football, Skylar Thompson or Bridgewater who started games in this league, who's been a backup in this league, who's been around this league for years? Right now, I think Thompson may be the better choice at backup, but Bridgewater is the better player for the backup role. But you have another game. And I don't know how much you're putting Tua out there. I don't know how much you're putting Bridgewater out there. And at this point, he said it, Brett made a good point. Like, you've already shown that Thompson has ability. He's not going to be on the practice squad. Like, he's not going to just be parked there. Someone's going to pick him up and at least make him a backup. There's a lot of starters in this league that shouldn't be starting. Most teams have backups that are Skylar Thompson will be a backup in this league. So if you're the Dolphins, you may have to use up another spot for him. We will see what happens with that. We will see what happens with the Miami Dolphins as another preseason game comes this weekend. Again, the third game's weird because to me, you don't have a fourth game. So that should mean the third game is still important, and then you just rest everybody. It's the opposite. A lot of teams are like, oh, this would have been the important game. Now it's the last game, so we're playing no one. Which they've done for the most part all preseason. You know, once in a while, like Daniel Jones played a lot, and Mahomes played a lot. Most teams aren't playing the starters at all. Derek Carr didn't play a minute in game 2. I don't see him playing in game 3. So I don't know. The preseason, even I've talked a lot about it, I think it's stupid. I think I don't have a problem with it. Like Brett says, it's worthwhile for his players. But I either wouldn't televise it, or if I would televise it, I would make it like on some, other channel or understand what it is. And I wouldn't put it in the package for season tickets. I would make it some other thing, give it for free, make it like scrimmages. Because the way that they're playing players, it's guys that are either not on the team at all or guys that are hopefully going to make the team. It's not the stars. Yeah, starters played a little in this last game, but it wasn't a lot. And it really didn't have any effect on the outcome of the game. So, to me, the preseason, whatever value it had before from a fan standpoint, I think it's lost it. I really would love for them to reevaluate that because it's sort of annoying. Like, you turn on the game, you get excited, you're watching it, and then you're like, Tua's out already? Like, the second quarter just started. He's already out? You're like, okay. I mean, what am I going to get out of this? So it seems like Dolphin fans are getting a lot out of it. So good for them. I'm not trying to fight with anyone. I'm just it's a rare place to be because I was Dolphin defender my whole life because they won. I'd get in wars in college with people because like that was when they went to the Wannstedt Saban era and they weren't as good, but they were still competitive. and they were still either going to the playoffs or contending for the playoffs. So I defended them. It's been, 19 years, 20 years since that time. So I haven't been Dolphin defender for a long time. But I find myself defending them because we haven't seen any of the stuff that we're expecting. So in their minds, like, oh, see, they're the same old Dolphins. It's like, no, not everything wouldn't change, but then look like the same. So the only thing that makes sense is the preseason. So obviously it looks like the same on purpose. Like McDaniel's not going to, I'd love for him to go big and say, screw it. I don't care if you know my plays. I'm so confident in my team, my players. We're going to do them anyways. But it doesn't matter. They don't do that. Even in creative, look, McVay's Mr. Creativity, right? McVay's starters don't play at all in the preseason. Like, he's the originator of the young next generation of head coach. Every team, LaFleur has a job because of McVay. The coach of the Bengals, Zach Taylor, has a job because of McVay. Arizona, Kingsbury, who was a horrendous college coach, has an NFL job because of McVay. Shanahan, who I think is older, was already getting there, but is in that same vein of young guru. And none of them take the preseason seriously. None of them. So even the next generation, they're worse. They think the preseason is stupid. So how can you know that and then get frustrated at what you're seeing? To me, it's okay. They don't care, and they've made that very clear. So I'm expecting a lot of shock and awe when the regular season starts. Because we heard a big game, we heard a lot, and we've seen nothing. But coming up next, you'll see a lot, hopefully. He'll join us here. The one and only John Congemi. Again, thank you, too. Jimmy Johnson's a big chill of Key Largo. Defo is not here. You're not losing your mind. Your thing's not working. It's fine. Defo is on his way back from New Orleans. He will be here tomorrow. So I will finish up today. And Mike Mayo's lunchbox will be just Mayo and me. Mayo and myself. Mayo and I guess is the best English. My dad always makes sure I know that. So I get no Defo today, but you'll get Defo tomorrow. Coming up next, you will have Jimmy Johnson, Big Chill of Key Largo, Dateline Dolphins. The one and only John Congemi right here on South Florida Live.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously. Friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs, unmatched. Steaks, hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Recently, we realized it's not just hurricane season that can hurt us. Any time of year, things can happen to your home or business. And the insurance company can be your friend, but they also can be your enemy. Horizon Public Adjusters, Justina Testa, are here for you to help this process go so much easier. Before you call the insurance company, call Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa at 954-809-8752. Would you go into court without an attorney? So why would you go up against an insurance company without Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa? 7 to 10 times more money recovered with a public adjuster than if you went on your own. If there's no recovery, there's no fee. Give them a call at 954-809-8752. Why go up against insurance companies alone when you can have Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa on your side?
Jimmy Johnson joins us here on the program, along with John Congemi, and it's Dateline Dolphins, of course. Leslie Visser, the lovely and talented one.
It was always different. You had to know if it was Emmitt Smith, if you screamed at him, he was going to go into a shell. I wasn't going to get anything out of him for the rest of the day. If it's Charles Haley, he was going to get upset at me and maybe threaten me on my life. And
mean it.
Yeah, and mean it. And he could have done it too, I promise. But when he went into my office, he said, Coach, just get on to me one-on-one. Don't do it in front of the other players. Now, Michael Irvin, I could cuss him like a sailor. And the more I cussed him, the harder he worked.
From South Florida to the entire world, thank you to the iHeartRadio app. Here is Defo joined by Lubie on The Defo Show.
Not entirely true. There's no Defo. But there is Lubie and this gentleman who joins us each and every Monday. Dateline Dolphins is back, baby, with the one and only John Congemi. Thank you to Jimmy Johnson's Big Show of Key Largo. Good morning, Mr. Congemi. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, Lubie. Long time no talk. Good to see you. Everything's going great, man. Enjoying the summer. Looking forward to an exciting Dolphins season. Preseason underway, but getting everything kicked off at training camp was a lot of fun this summer.
So let's start there. You're right. It's been a while since we've had the one and only John Congemi with us. How has your off season been? How has it been, taking a step back from football?
It was great. You just work your core job, to be honest with you. Playtime's over when you cover the Miami Dolphins, but it's been great. Played a little golf, got to spend time with our family and friends. So, looking forward to getting back into the groove of covering Dolphins football. And it's been exciting so far. You had a lot of things to talk about in training camp, and it just seems like this roster this year has been put together for one sole purpose, and that's to get into the playoffs and make a move, especially when you acquire, Tyreek Hill in the offseason. And he's been so good from the glimpses that you see at practice, because obviously we haven't seen him in a preseason game and probably won't. But those are the things that I was looking forward to in getting to cover the team in some downtime, and then getting to see them. And with him involved at such a high level, it just makes this team that much more explosive.
All right, so you just said it, and it's interesting because Defo and I have talked about this. It's not like the preseason's ever been the most important thing, but it definitely, at least when I was growing up, had its importance, and you sort of understood. And we even recently, we talked with you in years past of, you know what the first game was, you knew what the second game was, you knew what the third game was, and you knew what the fourth game was. Last year, they sort of threw a wrench into all of it because they got rid of a game, and it sort of changed everything, it felt like. And we're seeing it where it used to be uniform from team to team. It feels like each team is taking a very different strategy, where Andy Reid's playing a guy who's won MVPs, plural, and Patrick Mahomes, and the Raiders aren't playing Derek Carr. So, and Tua's playing two series. What are your thoughts of the preseason now? You're a guy who went for this league years ago and has covered this league for years, of the preseason now compared to in the past. Like, is it because it feels like the young guys, the ones that are taking over this league, Zach Taylor, LaFleur, McDaniel, Shanahan, sort of poo-poo it, right? Like they know what it's worth, and they're not risking their guy. Like McVay won't play starters at all the entire preseason. Like, and he says it before it starts. Like, what are your thoughts on the preseason now compared to what it was before? Like the value of it now as compared to before?
Well, I think it's more like you said. It's about the mentality of the coach and the players, to be honest with you. I think some of the younger coaches have seen so many bad things happen, potentially, and actually happen in the preseason, that they don't want to expose not only their coaching style, but their team to a start without four of their starters because of injury due to meaningless games. They've cut the preseason down. It used to be 6 way back in the day, and then it went down to 4, and now it's down to 3. I think it's going to be down to probably less than that, if anything, 10 years from now, 5 years from now. I think they'll continue to do that. I've got a theory that somebody was asking me about the preseason the other day, and I said, what you should do? You should probably have the top 16 teams, all the teams that get into the playoffs, you're exempt from playing in a preseason game. Now, everybody from 17 to 32, you have to play preseason. And if you're 31 and 32, you have to play in the Hall of Fame game.
Nice.
And it's one of those things where the other 16 teams that make the playoffs, they would get together with their coaches and do those 2-day, workouts where you have live, tackling and certain drills. You have some scrimmaging, you have 7-on-7, you do 1-on-1s, you put that out for the fans. But you get probably better work with your starters doing that than you do in a preseason game when you're exposing them 11 on 11, for maybe 2 or 3 series. So I think the preseason now for the younger coaches, it's better in practice than it is in the games, because you can control the environment to an extent at practice. You can't control that in a game.
Well, look, and we've already seen some injuries happen. Brett Tessler was just talking about the Bucks. I didn't realize the Bucks were down a second offensive lineman before we even had game 3 of the preseason. So it's understandable you don't want to see guys get injured. That's everyone's greatest fear. The Dolphins have already lost a guy who was going to be. It felt like Trill Williams was really pushing to not only be the third cornerback, but to just be out there. I think the guy was playing really well. So you've already had to make a change for them. So it's understandable you don't want guys to get hurt. It's just, I wonder, we always were told, Jimmy Johnson would play Zach Thomas in the special teams in preseason. Like, we were always told to a certain extent, that's how you saw these guys. And I get it. These scrimmages, during the week with other teams seem to have taken really the place of it. I not like what you're saying, but I'm curious, why keep doing it then? Like, why keep having it? And I get it. Look, for the guys that are at the end of the roster, for the guys who are drafted late, they need this. This gets them a job. Okay, but can't that just be those joint practices and one preseason game? Like, I don't understand. I guess the money, I get it. They make the money. But there's always a way to make money. We found the NFL will always find a way to make the money up. Like, why waste the to me, the fans, I mean, the coaches will find a way, but why waste the fans' time?
Here's why you do it. You find a guy like Skylar Thompson, who is at the bottom of your depth chart. And all of a sudden you're saying, well, I'm not going to play Tua Tagovailoa. I'm really not going to play Teddy in the first game. Skylar, go out and give it hell. Go out and do what you do. And all of a sudden he raises some eyebrows to say, not only did he play well, but he played at a level where he was under control. He had everything, as a rookie, first time in the NFL uniform, he went out, made one bad throw out of I don't know how many he threw against Tampa Bay, but the other night here against the Raiders, he throws for 129 yards, a touchdown. He's nearly perfect. And now he repeats himself. And not only does he do it in 2 game settings, but he's been doing it at practice. So you find a guy like that, or you find a guy like Azukama, who, he's a good college receiver from Texas Tech. His position coach went to school there, has an affinity for him. He's going to try to push him. Well, he doesn't, Wes Welker doesn't have to push this guy. All he has to do is let him play. And you get to see a guy come out of his shell and go, well, maybe he could be our 4th guy or our 5th guy. And I don't know if you get that if you just are running one-on-ones and you're running 7-on-7s and the ball doesn't happen to go there. He's open, but the ball doesn't go there. Well, is he going to catch it in that situation? You don't know. You put the uniform on, you put fans in the stand, you put the lights on. Guys react differently sometimes. So you need those settings for a certain amount of your roster. It's a small percentage, but if you're trying to put a 53-man roster together, there's no other way to do it but to play the game.
Well, and it's interesting, and you brought it to the Dolphins, and of course, that's the one team I paid the most attention to, and it's who we talk about, and we call this Dateline Dolphins for a reason. I'm so used to having my expectations low that I already don't take the preseason too seriously. I'm noticing on Twitter a very different fan base when like the preseason, they're living and dying like it's not only the regular season, like it's the playoffs. Like every play, every drive, I'm seeing the fans freak out. Well, look, if you're the Dolphins, you're happy because it means they're engaged, and engagement has been a problem the last few years. We've talked about it. And sort of the is gone. Like there's no like the fans are in. They're in. I just find that they want to be in so bad that to me it feels like they're taking it too seriously. What have you? Because Thompson has looked good, and as Okama has looked ridiculous. I mean, the dude is making catches like he's Randy Moss out there. How seriously do you take those? Are you taking it the way you just said it? It feels like you're taking it as okay. Like we maybe have something here. Like the fans are taking it like Thompson's going to start over Tua. Okama's might be the next Tyreek Hill. Like where are you with that?
I'm not there. I'm nowhere close to there, Lubie. But I will say the fans probably have an added energy to their fan excitement because of what happened in the offseason. I think anytime you add a difference maker to your team, you puff your chest out a little bit more. Anybody that has Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback is going to go, we're going to beat you guys any day, including, Monday Night Football, right? Any day we play, we have a chance to win, and we have a chance to win the Super Bowl. I think the Dolphins may not be there, but when you add Tyreek Hill to a roster with Jalen Waddle and a quarterback that you think might be able to get you somewhere, you don't know where that is, but he's going to be able to get you hopefully to the next level of playoffs, getting in and being competitive in that realm of 10, 11, 12 wins. You have to get excited. And I think the Dolphins have been yearning for a chance to be able to look at New England and say, we have the better team. To look at the Buffalo Bills and say, maybe we have a chance to go 500 with you guys this year. I don't think the Dolphin fans have felt that way in 20 years about New England, to be quite honest. They haven't had a chance. They may win one out of every 4 games at home, but it wasn't to get into the playoffs. It wasn't to, have a playoff win over a division rival in a wild card game. It wasn't any of those scenarios. It was just, oh, you beat Tom Brady at home. You could brag because it was the last game of the year and you felt good about going into the offseason, right? So now I think with the additions on offense and with a defense that has really been strengthened because it stayed together and it has a defensive coordinator that kind of knows what he's doing, I think this team has a legitimate chance to look down at the AFC East and go, at least the fans do, we should beat New England twice. We probably have the better team. We have a chance to do that. When was the last time you felt that way as a Dolphin fan? Probably in 20 years, right? 22 years. Yeah. The Jets you should be able to beat. And now you have to find a way to win one against Buffalo. That sets up, if you're a Dolphin fan, that sets up the rest of your season because now you have a chance. You've got 5 wins in your pocket, right? Yeah. All you got to do is get another 5. So you feel like you have a chance, if you can do that within your own division.
You brought up the key name, and it's the guy that's been a lightning rod, even though he's the most mild-mannered person, one of the more mild-mannered athletes you'll ever meet. Tua only played 2 series total so far. He played a little over a quarter because the series actually were pretty elongated. One ended in a field goal. What are your thoughts? And you've been around camp probably a lot more than us. You've been around them a lot more than us. We've heard a lot of good. We've heard more good about him than we've ever heard since he was at Alabama. You've seen it. There's more of a moxie. There's more of a confidence. There's more of he's biting. When they throw jabs at him, he throws them back a little bit. He's not rude, but it's a different Tua than we've seen. He's leading. The arm strength is there. You're seeing a little bit more athleticism, as though people are thinking the hip was still an issue last year, and now it's not. What have you seen from Tua so far? What are your thoughts on him heading into the regular season?
He's been good, Lubie. He's been good in training camp. I'm not going to, get the pom-poms out and fluff him up to be somebody he's not. He's looked really good. He's had a couple of days that have been rocky. Other than that, he's bounced back and played like a starting quarterback in the National Football League. He's been accurate. He was on time. He's been a leader. He's been, talking it up with the rest of the guys. I think he has an added confidence because he feels good about the offense that he's in. He feels good about his head coach being an offensive-minded guy that he can bounce probably different things out and feel at liberty to say, I don't like that. Let's get it out. And the coach go, cool, I got you. It's out. Or let's tweak it. Let's work on it, in another way, out of another formation. So I think the rapport is important for a starting quarterback at any level in any league. You have to have a relationship with your head coach because you're essentially the head coach on the field. You're essentially that leader. You're an extension of the staff, but yet you are the leader of men in the huddle. So you have to be able to have that carryover, and you have to have that confidence and that backing from the head coach. And I think Tua finally feels like, he can do pretty much whatever he wants because it's his team. And I think the head coach has given him that confidence to feel that way, that he can finally not worry about, letting his hair down and just saying whatever comes to his lips, and being able to be one of the guys, yet be the leader that his say is the last say. And this is how we're going to go about how we do things on offense. And I think that's given him an added boost at training camp, and it's carried over to his confidence throwing the football down the field. It also helps that there's much more room to throw the football when you have Tyreek Hill creating space and Jalen Waddle on the other side to be able to do the same thing. And now you just have to find who fits well around them, who fits well behind Tua. Is there a fullback in our future? Yes. How does he fit into the offense? Mike Gesicki's been a ghost kind of in this offense so far. Is he become a bigger role, or does he become a lesser role? And some other guys like Tanner Connor and Durham Smythe maybe split the load at tight end. But when it comes back to Tua is the guy that's going to be orchestrating everything. And I think he has the confidence and he has the skill set in this offense to be able to do what it takes to win games.
Well, and that you just brought up the other two things that we haven't brought up that you brought up. One of them is Akuma Thompson have been the positive. Tua has been the question mark. Then Gesicki, who was tagged and people were excited to have back, not only he played the last game, he was playing into the second half. In the third quarter, he was playing. The big question mark around him has been his blocking skills. His missed block is what allowed Teddy Bridgewater to be on an island, leading to a safety in the second quarter of a preseason game. That's been was raised to like the number one question after this game is, why is he out there? And what does that mean? When you've been around the team, you've been around this game for a long time, and you have a starting tight end into the third quarter of a preseason game, it's not the best look. And people question, where did he fit in this offense? This was more of as good as Greg Kittle is, he's a blocker. Like, he's a guy that goes out and is great in the passing game, but he's a throwback. He's like a Bavaro. Well, he'll go and block too. He's like a Gronk in that regard. Gesicki isn't, and he never really hid from that. Are we seeing those questions brought to the surface? I mean, does he have a place in this offense with what we've seen so far in this preseason?
No, they're legitimate questions because it happens day after day after day, and you're kind of going, where's the guy, the big 6'6" tight end that they split out, and he looks like a wide receiver, and he's a mismatch nightmare, and they're asking him to put his hand in the ground and block, which was never his skill set, probably at any level of football, no matter how big or how much bigger he was than the 100-pound guy he was going against when he was 8 years old or 9 years old. So yeah, you wonder if there's other tight ends on this roster that fit the scheme a little bit better than Mike does right now. And my answer is yes, from what I've seen and what they were asking him to do. Mike Gesicki is a guy that needs to gather speed. He needs to gather a little bit of a gait and roll in and out of routes on corners, on outs, on ins. But it's never stop, plant, turn your shoulders to the quarterback, catch the ball, and then turn around again, because it takes him a little while to get up to top speed. And if you've noticed over the years, his catches in the red zone are over people. In the middle of the field, it's on the perimeter, running away from a linebacker or a nickel back or a safety. It's not standing still, catching the ball, and then making somebody miss and go for another 10 yards. And I think that this offense so far, from what I've seen, I mean, when you mention the guy playing that deep into the third quarter of a preseason game, and he's your starting tight end, you're going, well, why? They're trying to get him work? Are they trying to get him work at different things that he's not accustomed to? Or is he just maybe the third guy? Maybe he's just another guy at that position on this team this year. I don't have the clear answer to that question. But for me, it looks like Durham Smythe and Tanner Connor so far have had an upper hand at what they're asking the tight end position to do, because they have that skill set. Mike's more of a wide receiver, and he'd admit that. He'd be the first guy to admit that. I'm better, flexed out, give me the mismatch. You've got Tyreek or Jalen, but if you like my mismatch, it's pretty much on their third or fourth best cover guy. Just put it close, and I'll come down with it. But it doesn't look like they're asking that out of him in this offense.
Well, and then the other thing off of that is with Mike McDaniel was the run game, right? He was the run game coordinator for San Francisco with one of the best run games in football. He went on to be the offensive coordinator, but was still responsible for the run game. Went on to be a big part of Deebo Samuel going from a receiver to whatever the hell Deebo Samuel is now, as good an all-around weapon as we've had in the NFL for years. And he was a big part of that. So the idea was it's going to be based off the run game. They brought in 3 running backs that all have experience, that are all expected to get big time in this offense. And so far, the running game has struggled. I don't know what to do, because, again, to me, you still haven't seen Teron Armstead, who was the big, outside of Tyreek Hill. Armstead was a bigger one for me because they needed to solidify the offensive line, and they went and got the best offensive lineman on the market. He hasn't played a minute yet. And it wasn't because of injuries. They're just being smart.
And he won't. I don't think he'll play a minute.
How hard can you be on the run game if he's not even out there at all?
Well, you can't be overly critical, but you can raise an eyebrow to it, because the scheme is supposed to remedy the ill of this offensive line. And so far, they I guess the premise of this offensive line, Lubie, is they want to run in unison off the ball, right? They want to be able to take people and run off the football, create daylight for these fast running backs to press the line of scrimmage, look where the daylight is. There's no predetermined hole that they're going to run through. It's just wherever the daylight is, use your speed, press that line of scrimmage, and then get to the daylight, no matter where it flashes. So far, it's been total darkness in the running game for the Miami Dolphins, because there hasn't been a whole lot of daylight. Now, that's not being overly critical, because it is the preseason. You're kind of getting used to a new scheme. But at some point, you have to engage and move people on the line of scrimmage. There's still 4 starters that are playing on the line of scrimmage. There's still a starting running back, and there's still movement that needs to be created. And you haven't seen that consistently. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles come in for 2 days of work on Wednesday and Thursday, preseason game on Saturday. Let's see if that improves this week, because if it doesn't, now you've got some question marks on, there's been a lot of pass play action in the preseason, a lot of predication, a lot of predetermined, hey, we're going to run play action, even though we haven't really run the football. We're going to work on it, right? That could work in the preseason because guys are so trained, run. But if you're not running the football, you don't have to commit that many people there.
Yeah.
So let's see how it works this week. And if it gets a little bit better, with still some time off to work on it before New England comes to town for the first game of the regular season.
Does any of that have to do with play calling? And I get it's a run, so how different can runs be? But we've heard that's where McDaniel's guru is. He can make things where they don't exist, right? So to me, that would be in play calling. You'd see double reverses. You'd see different kind of sets when it came to a run game. From what I've seen, they haven't done any of that. It's been very old school, standard, run the football kind of stuff. And that's not what I've seen from him with the Niners, and that's not what I've heard of him. So can any of that be at play? Because I've been the Dolphin defender this preseason and trying to say, look, what do you want? He's not going to show you anything. Is any of that true? Is any of that in there with what we've seen?
Yes, I think so. I think by motion, by formation, by what you're doing pre-snap, you can manipulate the defense and move people out of the box. Especially when you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle that are going to create room. If you see him on a bubble motion, first thing as a linebacker, I'm going to back up, or I'm going to give some ground as a perimeter, edge defender. I may give some ground that might create some space for our offensive line. In turn, will create space for a running back that instead of a 2-yard gain, you're getting 5 or 6, and maybe break it out of the backside for a first down. So I do think some of that has been shelved. But that goes back to, okay, if we're going to go old school, we're not moving anybody off the line of scrimmage right now. So you need some gimmicks. You need some eye candy. You need some movement. And that's where, the brainiac side of your head coach kind of comes into play. How can I make it easier by formation and motion to give us some room on the offensive line, to be able to get some runs? So we're in good situations on first down run. Now it's 2nd and 4. But at some point, the offensive line has to take it onto their own hands and say, we need to be better as well. Whether we're getting formation, motion, you have to be better at the point of attack. And so far, that hasn't been a consistency of this offensive line.
What is consistent, and what we're happy, one of the reasons why we're most happy every Monday when we do our Dateline Dolphins with John Congemi, of course, is our relationship with Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Key Largo. Super stoked to have you all still involved with Larry. sister-in-law. You guys, a family affair. You guys they do a great job. We had a blast when we went down last year. Looking forward to going back down this year. I have to ask you, how often have you been down there? Because we haven't been in a while, and I'm sort of getting the itch.
Yeah, I know. Once you get down there, you want to go back. And we've been down a couple months ago.
Nice.
On a Sunday, and it was beautiful. Place was buzzing. You know, the tiki bar was up and running. You had peel and eat shrimp is coming out. You know, basket after basket. We had homemade pizzas. We had fresh fish. It was a great day to be down at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, and it's an easy drive. You know, from the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area. It's half an hour from Miami, maybe an hour from Fort Lauderdale, and people just on their way down to Key West, that stop in and get some food, get a drink on their way down there. On the way back, it's one of those places where you stop right in Key Largo because it's easy access, and the Bayside is just a beautiful place to kind of kick your feet up and relax. And Larry and my brother Dominic and my sister-in-law Amanda do such a great job. From the first class service to the first class food. To the accommodations, it's just a beautiful place to spend an afternoon or an entire weekend. So Jimmy Johnson's is the place to be in Key Largo for sure.
When we get back, we will continue another Dateline Dolphins with John Congemi, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Show of Key Largo. We'll talk about the NFL at large as preseason moves in. We finish up. I guess there's a Monday night football game tonight. So we finish up week 2 in the preseason, and we'll talk more about that and head into week 3. Next, right here on the Defo Show with no Defo, just Lubie, with the one and only John Congemi on a Dateline Dolphins, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Key Largo.
Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in Style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. You know, since day one, Catholic Health Services has been part of Old School. And since we've started letting people know about them, it's changed their lives. You see, Catholic Health Services, while being recognized as one of the top places for stroke rehab in the country, it's also about a group of people who not just excel in what they do, from the doctors to the nurses to the therapist, on and on and on. It's how they do what they do every single day that separates them from the pack. They do it with a passion, unmatched, and the inclusion of family in every step of the process. Trust me when I tell you this. If you want the best, unmatched rehab with a special group of skilled, caring people, there is truly only one place, and that one place is Catholic Health Services.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Dateline Dolphins with John Congemi, and that's brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill in the Keys, and we're looking very much forward to doing some broadcasts there. I think we're going to head down there like once a month during the football season. I have to ask you this, and feel free to, not necessarily spill the beans from a personal standpoint to your good friend Dan Marino. Does he experience, or did he ever experience nightmares about handing the ball off to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar that one year when Jimmy insisted on running the ball on every play? And it was always, the announcer, I think it was Ron St. John, was a stadium announcer back then, and you could hear him say, hand off to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, gain of 1, 2nd and 9. Hand off to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, gain of 1, 3rd and 8. Danny ever talk about that? Remember?
No,
in
he's
those
never
days?
really talked about that, Defo. But you're right. I think they did have that on loop at whatever the stadium was called at that
Yeah,
time.
it was 1 yard every time, and it was a generous 1 yard they were giving him statistically.
Enjoy your trip to work with lots of laughs. Thanks to now on the Defo.
Welcome back to another edition of Dateline Dolphins with John Congemi here on South Florida Live, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Key Largo. So we went down the litany of Dolphins, good and bad. The one last thing I do want to talk about, does Noah Igbinoghene even make the right? Like at this point, I mean, when you had Trill go down, and it wasn't even considered to bump him up, they immediately went and got Mackenzie Alexander, who played well. He actually played well this weekend.
Right.
Noah did not. Where is he at this point? Like, is he even on the roster at this point? Like, it feels like I've heard he's the 5th or 6th corner, and I don't know. With Skylar being so good, you're not going to get rid of him at this point. So that's already one less spot for another position. Before we move to the league at large, I am curious, is he on this team at this point?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, they like a lot of things about Noah during the week, but then, that's why you play the games in the preseason. It's because things are a little bit easier during the game, believe it or not, than it is at practice. Because at practice, the tendency of your offense, the tendency of your defense, the route tree, kind of where they're breaking off. Things are a little tighter after a week of training camp. But when you get it against a different team and you get on the field and it's an actual game, things separate a little bit more. Things are a little bit clearer for the quarterback. Things are a little bit clearer for the wide receiver and defensive back. But Noah has been in a situation where he's had opportunities to make plays, and it seems like, he's made the majority of them at practice, for what you're asking a corner to do. But in the games, he's been trailing a little bit. He's been off. There's been too much cushion. And we've seen that repeat itself. So I think that's a legitimate question. Is a guy like that still, hang your hat and say, I think there's some better play in his future. We're going to still stay with him. Or have we found somebody that we're going to have to give up on a first-round draft choice, and we're just going to cut bait this year, and we found another guy in Crossan, or we found another guy who was in Thurl Williams. I believe he'd have been the next guy up. And it's at a position, Lubie, where Byron Jones hasn't done anything yet. He's coming back from surgery opposite X. He hasn't even, been able to practice, and he hasn't been able to do anything on the side. So you're crossing your fingers and going, is he in 3 weeks going to all of a sudden be able to come up to game speed? And if he's not, is it Igbinoghene? Is it Crossan? Is it Ross? Sam Madison, who's the new, corners coach, has to be able to find somebody that he can trust, and that, you're only one play away from being the guy. X has been rock solid, but if you have one guy that's, a little shaky coming back from injury and he's not up to speed, that's where the ball's going to go. Week 1 against New England. I don't care what type of reputation you have. I'm testing the guy that's been out for 6 months.
Yep.
And if he's not up to snuff, who's the next guy in? Yeah. So, and is that next guy in? Where does the level of that competition go? So I think that is a legitimate question. Igbinoghene, does he land on the roster? Right now, it's 50-50 for me. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's 60-40 the other way of not being on the roster. But he has another week. He has another chance, another opportunity. 2 practices against Philadelphia, against a wealth of talent at wide receiver and a good quarterback. And then he has the game to prove himself, because, none of the starters I would think are going to play in game 3. So that means a lot of time for Igbinoghene out on the edge to see if he can find a way to, kind of get back in the good graces and say, maybe he is a guy we can keep on the roster.
So the Dolphins had addition, and it's sort of vaulted them into the social consciousness of the league. I don't know, people still don't really have them as a playoff team, but they're at least talking about the Dolphins, right?
Right.
A lot of movement was around the league, and what's interesting to me is some of the places where there were losses, because the Packers are still considered, I don't know if they're not the favorite. It's the Bills and the Bucks, but they're in that top 5-ish range. Look, Rodgers has done this time and time again, But this is a different Packers, right? Like Aaron Jones is really the guy that they feed. They feed the Aaron Jones and the big back, AJ Dillon out of Boston College. That's really the two-headed monster. And then they pass. So a lot of people are just assuming they have a really good defense. They're going to run. They lose Devontae Adams, not a big deal. I'm curious if that's the case, because at this point, Aaron Rodgers really relied on Devontae Adams a lot. Like, he got a lot of targets. And they didn't really add any. Like, at least the Chiefs added Juju Smith-Schuster, and they had a bevy of guys. Pringle, who's ready to step up, and the speedster, formerly out of Clemson, I'm trying to remember his name, Hardman, who's ready to, is that speed guy that might not be, like, the Packers didn't do that. They drafted a guy, but they didn't really sign anyone to really try and even sort of take the place of Adams. What are your thoughts on the Packers? Because people still have them high, and I really don't know what to do with them.
Well, they have them high only because of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And if you look back, I think it was it last week, an article came out that Aaron Rodgers wasn't happy with his wide receiving core. And he made it known to those guys that, they have to raise their level of play, because I don't want to waste a year throwing to you guys if you're not going to do things that I need you to do to be successful and win. Yeah. So you're right. I think the Packers have changed their dynamic on offense a little bit, because they have two running backs and a great offensive line that can control the game on the ground. And you just need to do Aaron Rodgers type things in the passing game, where it's, 3rd and 12 and he throws for, 20 and it's a first down, and then you control the clock, and then you get a score, a nice strike in the red zone, and you're up 7-0, and it looks like you did a lot, and you didn't do a whole bunch, So I think they're going to miss Adams on the outside for sure, 1,000%, because you're not going to find a guy unless you end up getting a Tyreek Hill type of player to replace him, coming into the roster, which evidently the Green Bay Packers felt like they didn't need to do to replace a wide receiver like that. It's going to be tough. I think they will have some struggles, and I don't see them being the top 1 or 2 or even maybe the third team in the NFC to be able to challenge for a Super Bowl, because you've got the Rams, you've got Tampa Bay, and you've got some other teams that are kind of vying for that third spot. I don't want to say the Cowboys, but the Cowboys are somewhere up there if they finally put it all together. But you've got more teams than just 1 or 2 that are vying to get into that top echelon of teams in the NFC.
Well, and you brought up a team that, it's funny, talent-wise, there's not a lot of question marks. I guess there's no Gronkowski anymore, but until the playoffs, Gronk really wasn't involved in the Bucs season. I mean, he was retired for most of last year, and then he actually was a big part of their playoffs, but they have talent there where Gronkowski wasn't the big question mark to me, and the defense brings back, if not everyone, almost everyone. They are the favorite in the NFC, and deservedly so. And look, Brady's 45, so I don't know how much camp you need him there. But that was the thing about Brady, right? Like, even though he's old, he's there, the first guy, the last guy. He literally takes every camp like a psycho. Like, he's still that 6th round pick. Like, that's his thing, is he's out there working with guys in the offseason. Like, he was the weirdo that, even though he's the vet that usually taps out at this time, he goes harder than everyone. And that was really what turned them around from a team under 500 to winning a Super Bowl, was because Brady was such a loon. They all were like, shoot, if this guy's doing it, we better do it. Well, and it's personal reasons, and we don't know exactly why, but he hasn't been there at all this time. And he was in camp, I guess, but he hasn't been there during the preseason, and he's still not there. And Todd Bowles, it's very interesting. He's non-committal about when he's coming back, which, look, I get it. We know Brady, who he's going to be. But to me, I mean, we are going into week 3 of the preseason. And the fact that the guy's still not there is a little weird. And especially from a guy that's been so committed his entire career. Like, what does that do for the Bucs? Because they really do follow him in lockstep. The entire team came back last year because of Brady, taking a lot of less money because of Brady, and he's not there.
Well, I will say, if there's one guy in the National Football League that does not need any type of preseason, it would be Tom Brady. And the Dolphins and I was fortunate enough to go over with the Dolphins a couple of weeks ago when they had practices on a Wednesday and Thursday and had the preseason game on Saturday night. And I got to watch Tom Brady practice on Wednesday, and he looked sharp. He looked good. And that was without Evans and without, 3 or 4 of their starting wide receivers. They were all on the shelf. And this was a guy that was able to dominate on one-on-ones. He was being able to put the football wherever he wanted to. He dominated on 7-on-7. And then in the team game, the offense moved very efficiently. It wasn't like he dominated the Dolphins, but he did his part and he looked the part. He looked like, if not the greatest quarterback to play, one of, right? He did everything with ease, and his arm strength was good. His mobility looked good. He was, was in shape. He took all the reps he needed to take, and now he disappears for a couple of weeks. And it's not really about Tom Brady I'm worried about. It's more the psyche of the other guys around him. I got some things I need to take care of, and maybe they don't know exactly what it is, and maybe it hasn't been announced, or maybe it has been announced. So everybody kind of comes to grips with what he's dealing with, whatever it may be. But it's still, it's hard and it's unusual. And it's unusual for a team to go through that, because now you've gone from Tom Brady to Blaine Gabbert. And no disrespect to Blaine Gabbert, but no one's going to be able to hold that torch. And Gabbert's, did a good job in the preseason game against the Dolphins. He was fine. But again, it's not lining up week one against the Rams, or, against the Cowboys, or against whatever other team against the Packers. Whoever Tampa Bay has week one, they're going to want Tom Brady at quarterback, and they're going to want him for the duration, because that gives them the best chance to win a world championship. And it is awkward. It is weird. It's probably weird for Todd Bowles to come out and address it every week. It's probably weird for any of his teammates to come out and kind of say, well, I really don't know what's up, but we got faith in Tom, and we're going to ride with him when he comes back, and hopefully everything's fine. But it's definitely an unusual situation.
Well, and that's the thing, is it's not his play. Look, you should be worried about his play. He's 45, but he's proven the time it doesn't matter when it comes to Tom Brady. It's not his play. It's what he represented as that figure. And he did it in New England, and you saw that they've hung around, but they're still not the same franchise without him. And he's on it with Tampa Bay. Look, I love Jameis. It's a different aura, and Brady owns that aura. Brady lives up to it by going out there and being the toughest competitor of anyone.
Lubie, just look at what Tyreek Hill's done for Miami Dolphin fans.
Yes.
That's exactly the same thing. When Jameis left, God bless him, he went, to New Orleans. Tom Brady comes in, and now Tampa Bay fans are beating their chest, and they have every good reason to. What did he do? He led them to a championship. And now they're not only competitive, but they're one of the teams you talk about every year to win it all. And they weren't that way 5 years ago. They weren't that way 10 years ago. But New England was. They were that way for 20 plus years.
Yep.
So, that's why Dolphin fans feel that way. They feel like, hey, if Tyreek Hill can make such a difference to make Tua that much better and make this offense more dynamic, I'm going to beat my chest. Why can't we beat New England twice? Yep. Last year they didn't think that. 2 years ago they didn't think that. 3 years ago they were just trying to win a game.
Yeah.
So that's the way one person can change the fan base in terms of the confidence they have in their football team.
And that's the thing. That's the big question. That's why I'm curious about it. Is, look, I don't care what guys do. I never really think this time matters for the veteran as much as it matters for the young guy. But we always see, look, as weird as Aaron Rodgers looked with his long hair, his mustache, and the wife beater, or the cutoff shirt, looking like Nick Cage from the 1990s, he was there. And he's been there every time, even if he's critical. It's just, we've seen that, especially in football, being there seems to matter. These guys like knowing that the great players are there. Yes, we know they're treated differently, but they never show it. And Brady's been the king of that. Brady's been the one guy that supposedly he calls when a guy's drafted 7th round. Brady calls him specifically directly. And as much as I can't stand the guy because of his Patriot connection, every teammate of his sings his praises while he's there and even after, because of his personal touch. So to me, this is a clear departure for him. And it's just for a team that has such high expectations, and it's either his last year or his second to last year. He already retired and then came back. It's like, you can't tell me they're not used to having any questions. Well, that's what's good about Brady, right? Is even when he's talked more in Tampa, there's never there's the cheating nonsense, fine, but there's not controversy. Like, the dude stays far away from controversy. You don't have to worry about leading up to Super Bowl, those stupid ass questions that come up because a guy was at the bar, or the Dennis Rodman or whatever, like, or Barrett Robbins. Like, when it comes to Brady, It's all about football. Well, for the first time in his entire career, it's not about football. Like, the dude's not there, and his coaches haven't answered these questions. His offensive coordinators haven't answered these questions. His linemen who are hurt now or haven't answered these questions. So I'm just curious. Like, we always say it doesn't matter, but players will tell you it matters. Like, we don't want to hear this stuff. We want to just be one track mind. And the one guy that's made it so simple his entire career, I find it interesting that after the entire offseason we saw of him retiring, then coming back, now when football's here, that's when he's gone. It's like, okay, that's
well, it's got to be something that's completely out of his control.
Yeah,
and the only thing, you can speculate that it's family related, that he needs to, maybe spend time with certain people in his family, and I have no idea what's going on there, but that would be the thing that you would say, okay, I understand where Tom Brady's at, because he values his job and what he does, as a professional, more than anybody. And for something to break away from his team and his synergy of how they're getting ready to prepare for the season had to be something that took on a greater significance than what he's had in his life as a pro quarterback for all these years, and doing it at such a high level. So you would think it would be so significant that there's only a couple things on the list that would be there before his job. And I would think the way Tom Brady holds himself, it would have to be, something internally, family-wise. So you hope that everything's, is okay with him, and you're only speculating there. But that would be the only thing I would think that would drive Tom Brady away from being at training camp with his team preparing for a season.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even a judgment. I mean, the guy literally at this point, he could miss an entire preseason in camp, and he should be able to do whatever the hell he wants. It's just, I'm just curious, because it's like, that's really what helped turn the Bucs around so quickly was, and you said it's not even Tyreek Hill has done the same thing. He's come in here. Anytime you see anything at practice, it's Hill. Like, he's there before everyone. Yeah. He's late. All we've heard, OJ McDuffie said it. We've heard it from you. He's the hardest worker. Like, for all his talk and all of his flash, he works his butt off. He's been the loudest person speaking about Waddle and speaking about McDaniel and speaking about Tua. Like, he's led by play, example, and words. And that's what Brady does. Brady's usually willing to be the lightning rod. He's usually willing to take it. So for him to not be there, I just find it like, something's going on. And I know a lot of these guys are able to just shirk it off and forget it. We've never seen this from this guy. So I'm just curious how it will affect the team, how it will affect him. Coming up next, we'll talk a little bit more about the AFC as the Dolphins added. Well, the AFC West became literally an arms race and is as good as any division we've ever seen when it comes to the NFL. So we'll talk more about that. We'll finish up things on our first week in a while doing Dateline Dolphins with the one and only John Congemi. Thank you to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Key Largo. More next. The Defo Show. Without Defo, just Lubie, John Congemi here on South Florida Live.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously. Friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
State. He followed in the footsteps of the great Dan Marino and brought Pittsburgh to heights not seen since the great Tony Dorsett ran the ball to Panthers' glory. He made the CFL fans forget about Flutie and Theismann and Warren Moon. As a football analyst, he's been compared with D-Row and Madden. And even more importantly, he survived the Joe Philbin era as a member of the broadcast team, the Finsiders. We welcome to the program the great John Congemi. Made a dynamite debut, as alluded to in the opening there, and came right back with a strong follow-up. And every Monday, 9 o'clock, we go Dateline Dolphins with John Congemi. Jonathan, how are you, my friend?
I am doing terrific, Defo. I think the most impressive thing about that open was me surviving the Philbin era. I thought that was
The only way to get your morning started is with Defo, joined by Lubie, right here on The Defo Show.
All right, last few minutes here with John Congemi as we start back up our Dateline Dolphin Mondays. Thank you to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill Up, Largo. Defo will be back tomorrow. He'll be back next Monday. So I appreciate you, John, joining me solo this Monday to kickstart our Dolphins fun. I did want to talk about the AFC a little bit because the Bills are a lot of people's favorite. I don't know if losing Tyreek Hill will be as bad for the Chiefs as people think it will. I think you'll see Kelsey rise up. You'll see Hardman, Pringle. And I know they signed a couple people. I think Valdez Scanling went from the Packers to them. I know they signed someone. Juju Smith-Schuster is a guy that we've seen, feel underappreciated in Pittsburgh. So maybe he'll take over that one spot. So I think they'll be in a better place than people give them credit. I am curious what the moves of the offseason do for the other teams. Like, people are to me, they're forgetting how good Russell Wilson is. Because I keep seeing him even now with a Judy, with a Broncos team that people thought could be a playoff contender with Drew Lock at quarterback. Wilson had the Seahawks still fun every week with nothing. I mean, I know Metcalf is solid, but offensive line was an issue. The running game was an issue. The defense was an issue. So he had to put everything on his arm. And he still did a lot of things for that team that was sort of writing him off. But no one's really talking about the Broncos. And to me, I heard more about the Broncos last year before they had Russell Wilson than now. And you keep seeing the top 10 quarterback list and Russell Wilson at 8, at 7. And I'm like, I'm so confused. Like, isn't this what the Broncos needed? Isn't this what Russell Wilson needed? Why are we ignoring it? I know that division is tough, and the Raiders made some really fun moves in Devontae Adams and Khalil Mack, and the Chargers brought on J.C. Jackson. They brought in. I'm sorry, Khalil Mack went to the Chargers with J.C. Jackson, and they brought in the defensive end Chandler Jones and Devontae Adams to the Raiders. I get it, the sizzle, the sexy, but the Broncos were the team everyone thought was really good, and they brought in the quarterback, which people keep telling me is the most important thing. What are your thoughts on the AFC West? Because everyone's focused on the Chiefs and those other two teams. And I feel like they're sort of forgetting the Broncos.
I think the Broncos are going to be better because of the change at quarterback. You have a quarterback that's not going to give the football away in bad situations as much as Drew Lock did in Denver. Now, a lot of that was brought upon him by play around him. But still, I think when you have a quarterback to the level of Russell Wilson, he's going to be able to throw the football away, take a sack, find a way to complete a pass that maybe he escapes and doesn't put the ball in harm's way, but actually makes a play to continue a drive. So I do think that the Broncos will be better on offense. They'll protect the football a little bit better. They'll get touchdowns maybe instead of settling for field goals in some situations. But I don't see Kansas City moving from that top spot in the West. As good as the other teams have gotten, as good as the Raiders are going to be, the Chargers are going to be the same way. Their defenses are stacked. I still think Kansas City, with 2 minutes left to go, a minute left to go in a game, they're going to find a way to either get off the field defensively or if they have it offensively, I just think they find a way to push the football into a scoring spot, and they find other ways to win games more than other teams. No other game was evident than last year against the Bills. They just kept finding ways and answering. And I do think, though, that the West could be in a situation that they beat each other up to the point where, it's going to be tight down the stretch of, you think 3 teams are going to get in. I don't know if that happens, but it's definitely the best division in the AFC.
And is that why? Because a lot of people have the Bills as the favorite, and I get it. They've been coming. They were there against the Chiefs, and they didn't play. It's funny. It felt like it was the AFC Championship, but the Bengals went to the Super Bowl, so that means the Chiefs played the Bengals in the AFC Championship. But that felt like what was supposed to be the AFC Championship. And it was a war, and it was a great game, and the Chiefs outlasted them. So you're thinking, okay, now this is that year that young team overcomes the Chiefs. To me, it's more of people don't take the Dolphins seriously. The Patriots took a step back. The Jets are the Jets, and now they're missing their quarterback and their best offensive lineman. So the Bills will have a cakewalk through their division like the Patriots did for years. And the West, they're going to kill each other. So, like, is that why you think people are so high in the Bills? Because I think the Bills are going to be really good. I still think the Chiefs are better.
I think people are high on the Bills for two reasons. I think that they think it's their time.
Yeah.
You know, it's somebody else's time to take the reign away from Kansas City, and they're really good.
Yeah.
You go up and down that roster. I don't know how you stop or slow down that offense. I just don't see it unless they stop themselves. And they've got a defense that can take the football away, that can apply pressure at the line of scrimmage to opposing quarterbacks in the pocket. They've got a dynamic special teams. And when you play in Buffalo, as the season goes on, it's tougher to win in Buffalo. And the Dolphins know, all you had to do is watch the last 20 years of football. It's tough to win against the Buffalo Bills up there. So I think all those reasons kind of elevate the Buffalo Bills on equal footing or maybe just ahead of the Kansas City Chiefs, but that's 1 and 1A. That's a toss up between those two teams, but they are definitely the two best teams in the AFC, no question about it.
And before we go, you worked with ESPN for decades covering college football. I know you still have an eye toward college football. It starts this week. It was week 0, so it's not the official week. We don't have really any big games, but you do have Power 5 teams getting on the field. My Florida State Seminoles do take the field this weekend. What are you looking for? Each week we will talk college football with you. You've always been a great analyst for us when it comes to college football. What are your big, headlines or the big things you're looking for from this college football season?
To be honest, Lubie, just getting to identify the right quarterbacks with the right universities, because with this transfer portal and the way college football is, it's actually pro football now. Everybody's getting paid, right? So I just want to make sure I know who's playing for who. That way I can root for a team or two, So that'll be the first job. And then after it settles in, I want to see, how Georgia comes out after, finally taking down Alabama, and how Alabama responds. And, and for the state schools, I'd like to see Florida State and see them, bounce back and have a good year. How Miami's going to be, or, with Mario now down there, are they going to be world beaters now in the ACC? They haven't won an ACC championship since they joined the league. So maybe it's their time. I don't know if they can do it or not this year, but maybe in a couple of years. And Florida, how do they rebound with a new head coach? So it'll be interesting to see the state schools and, at least the big three, how they perform.
One thing we can't wait to see is Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Key Largo. Really happy to have you back. Happy to have them continued their support of the show. And we need to work it out. You, Tommy, Defo, Larry, Amanda, Dom, we need to work it out because we're ready to get down there. We have the video set up, rolling. So ready to get down there and really show just everything that Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has to offer.
Well, I know that's been communicated to everybody down there, so that should happen. That should be a reality real soon, so I can't wait either.
John, thank you so much for coming back, and have a great week. Enjoy the football, and we will talk to you next Monday, my friend. Thank you.
Sounds great, Lubie. Good being with you.
All right. The one and only Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Key Largo brings you John Congemi each and every week. Appreciate everyone that stuck with me all morning long. Appreciate those that came and left. Appreciate those that left and found us. I am done. Defo will be back tomorrow. And coming up in 3 hours, you will have another edition of the Lunchbox with Mike Mayo and myself, brought to you by a bevy of tremendous sponsors, headlined by Visit Lauderdale again this Thursday. We will have another Everyone Under the Sun, Every Dish Under the Sun, Visit Lauderdale edition of Mike Mayo's Lunchbox with Nikki Mohan. And I'm there. You see my arm and a hand here at Cackle once in a while this week. Cannot wait for us to get out to, I want to give hello to Il Paisano. Il Paisano will be there this Thursday, so definitely check out that. It's always fun seeing Mayo, Nikki getting into the food, meeting the restaurateurs and hearing their stories and just eating. never say no to a great meal. So definitely check out El Paisanos. Check us out Thursday. Check us out at 12 with my mayo. And tomorrow, the one and only Jeff DeForest returns on the Defo Show. Tomorrow with Defo, today without Defo. Just Lubie here on South Florida Live. Thank you, Brett Tessler, for joining me. Check out that segment. Thank you, John Congemi, because of Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Key Largo, joining me. And check out all of our South Florida content on 5 Reasons Sports Network. Check out our national content network podcast, the Believe Network, BLEAV.com. Just search After Hours, BLEAV.com, search After Hours. And each and every day right here, the Defo Show with Lubie on South Florida Live.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my show.